Welcome to the Classroom Cafe, where it's all about brewing the conversation between fellow educators. This special presentation is brought to you by the United Federation of Teachers and the union's Member Assistance Program. Thank you for joining us today. We hope this podcast inspires you, nourishes you, and motivates you. Now let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Classroom Cafe. I'm your host, Selma Williams, and today we have a special episode for you. With May being Mental Health Awareness Month, we thought it would be a good time to talk about why we do the things we do here in MAP and the importance of spreading mental health awareness. With that being said, today we're joined by two of our very own clinicians here in MAP. Kathleen Regalado. Kathy, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kathleen Regalado. I am the Senior Clinical Administrator here at MAP, and I've been working in the mental health field for about 7 years.
Thank you. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you.
And also with us, we have one of our illustrious consultants who has also recorded a podcast for us in the past, Steven Sulzer.
So I know that this is a podcast, so you all can't see, but I want you to know that as Selma was introducing me, I had a very large smile on my face. So I'm probably the newest member of the team. I'm with the Members Assistance Program. I guess it'll be actually 2 years, believe it or not, towards the end of the summer. My background prior to the Members Assistance Program was working as a clinical director, counselor, therapist with a substance use disorder population, co-occurring disorder population. And here at MAP, I do individual work, and I run some groups in addition to some supervision, and I'm happy to be here today.
And a whole lot of this and that, Steve. He does so much for us. Thank you, Steve. So MAP is made up of a group of 5 clinicians run by our fearless leader, Tina Fuccio, and Janice Acosta, who is normally our co-host, who is absent today, and a host of support, admin, and managerial staff. And so today we wanted to just take a moment and talk about why mental health awareness is even necessary, right? So let's just jump right in. I know mental health is it's a buzzword, right? Like everyone is interested in mental health, but let's talk about it. Why? What's the why? Why do we do this? Why do we spread this awareness?
So, in thinking about this conversation, I can't help but think about what you would think about typically when you would hear this kind of phrase, mental health, mental illness. And even to this day, I'll speak to people and they'll have a reaction like, well, I'm not crazy. So there is this kind of stigma, I think, still very much associated with mental health. To the credit, I think, of a lot of celebrities, and I think in a more general sense, I think mental illness, mental health, wellness, self-care, getting back to those buzzwords, Selma, I think are very much part of the language that we hear about. Definitely. So I do think that it's out there more, but I think what's really important is, getting back to your question about why is mental health awareness important, is because I don't know if we really know it or understand what mental health issues really is. Because I think we all feel depressed, right, at different times. We all may feel anxious at different times. We may all feel extreme stress and a sense of feeling overwhelmed. I think largely we all shared these different feelings during the pandemic, or the early stages of the pandemic. So I think we all can connect to those feelings, but what makes those feelings become a disorder, right? Something that requires treatment, something that requires assistance. And I think that would be an important thing for us to kind of talk a little bit about today in addressing mental health and its importance. So I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to open it up to you, and then I'll come back with some thoughts that I have.
Yeah, yeah. I think what you said is key, Steve. I think, you know, the awareness has been spread by so many people who have these large platforms and that can, you know, throw a large net and reach a large and different types of people. But I think for me, the why is ultimately support, so that people wouldn't feel like, by demystifying it and destigmatizing it, right? People would feel more encouraged and led to actually get help. Because there's so many people that struggle in silence because they're the fear of being, you know, labeled or judged, and just not really knowing where resources are even, you know? So I think the awareness leads to the whole reason we do this, right? So that people will actually ask for help and get it.
What I wanted to share is that, you know, you don't personally need to be afflicted by, you know, mental illness. A friend, a family, a colleague could be challenged or
Yeah.
having challenges with their mental health. And the awareness can, you know, support that person. So I think it's important for everyone to be aware of, you know, the different mental illnesses and the way it challenges everyone's lives.
So I was kind of reflecting back, I think on what you had kind of said earlier, Selma, about MAP, and really kind of talking a little bit about what we do. One of the things that is probably an essential part of what we do in relation to this topic is we provide a space, we provide an opportunity for people to connect in a way that's not kind of quote unquote a formal treatment experience, that people can call us and engage in services because they're having a bad day, because they're struggling with life stressors. And I think the opportunity to be on the receiving end of individuals who are looking for support, and our ability to provide it, whether it be a referral, connecting them with some type of MAP service, not only is it rewarding for me, but I really commend and think it's really important to acknowledge the courage that it takes for people to actually reach out for help.
Yeah.
So I think that, you know, just to kind of talk about not only the destigmatizing, but also to acknowledge and reinforce that we're really here as that kind of support and connection for people who are wondering if there's a mental health issue or stressor in their life that they need some support with.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, you know, especially for the population we support, which are educators, really being aware of the signs of mental health symptoms is important, right? Because there can be a colleague, a student who might not even recognize their own struggles with mental health. But because you're aware and are alert to different things that might lead to, it doesn't have to be all the time, you could be able to gently point them into the direction for help, right? So along with your family supports, this is something that overflows into every area of our lives. And mental health is just as important as our physical health, right? Like, I think sometimes we put that on the back burner and we put that to the side because it's something that we can't necessarily hold our brains in our hands, right? Whereas if we have a broken leg, we can't really move around. But how our brains function affects our physiology as well. If I speak personally, you know, I definitely have somatic symptoms of mental health, whether that's migraines, whether that's, you know, feeling it in my back and just feeling overall exhaustion when I experiencing a lot of symptoms, or I should say multiple or symptoms over a long period of time. And so it's important to identify that even our physical health can be affected, and it's not less than treating our physical health. And if we were to have a medical diagnosis, we would seek help from a medical doctor, right? Or someone that can give us some guidance in that area and you know, making it equal to or just as important, I should say, not equal to our physical health, is one of the goals of advocacy and mental health awareness. You know, we talked a lot about why it's important, but who do you think benefits most from mental health awareness, even not just in this month, right? But overall, what's the population of people that comes to mind when you think about benefiting the most from this?
I think that's a great question. And, this idea of most really kind of sticks out or resonates for me, because it's interesting, because I think you can make an argument for the individual themselves who might be struggling with a mental health issue or concern, but also family members and loved ones and people in each other's lives that could see things that we may not acknowledge in the same way that somebody who's observing us and those changes that might happen as a result of a mental health issue often can present itself. Yeah. And I think that so the awareness is two-sided. And I think just to kind of bridge this conversation to substance use disorders, I think it's similar in that there is a sense of denial or resistance to the reality, right, of a substance use issue, much like a mental health related issue. And it's often associated with a shame or a stigma. And I think the more people are educated and aware of the importance and really the prevalence, I think, of these kinds of disorders, hopefully the more people will feel encouraged to reach out and learn more about how and what resources are available.
Yeah.
I think about, the prevalence in, challenges with your mental health due to the pandemic. And I think, a lot of us struggled with our mental health, and a lot of us saw our family members struggle with their mental health. I think of the pandemic, and I think of PTSD, anxiety, depression. And so, we want help for ourselves, but we want help as well for the people that we love and care about. I think both people would benefit, or both groups of people would both benefit from awareness and being, familiarizing themselves with the challenges that might arise.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. I wanted to, just to loop back to what Steve said about substance use disorders. I think that it's important to demystify that so that people will ultimately seek support, right? And be more willing to tell their stories, and also be able to identify how substance use and mental health struggles can be co-occurring at the same time, and how they impact each other and magnify each other. So I think that's important, Steve. And Kathy, you mentioned something also very important about recognizing patterns. And I think as parents, as people, as educators, sometimes we do recognize patterns, right, within our families, and think about how much impact we can have if we can gain some sort of understanding and quote unquote control over our mental health struggles, or our family's mental health struggles, and how that will have a generational impact, right? If we would all, and how that would shape the world as we know it moving forward. So if I have a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, right, and I'm working with youth, or I have a child, I can recognize the signs really early and also offer support earlier, right? Like, so that offering that wisdom and what works and what doesn't work to someone who might be struggling is so important. And that's where I was going with the storytelling, because it's important that we are not afraid, right, to tell our stories, to speak, the things that we have gone through, and as clinicians, things that we have seen and experienced in the field, so that others can benefit from it. That we, just like we're doing this podcast right now, right? Like, people don't know what I look like. I would hope not. But what we say and what we talk about here today, I'm hoping will live on and will spark some interest in someone else's mind to go ahead and get smart about mental health and get smart about the symptoms of various diagnoses.
I think there's power in recognizing when someone you care about is having some challenges, like, hey, you've been acting a little different. Do you need some support? Is there something going on? that I can help you with, that I could support you with. I think, that's also very important, not just for yourself, but for the people around you, making sure that everyone is okay and checking in. I think that's very important. And there's power in that when you're educated and are aware of the ways in which people can be, affected.
Yeah.
And Kathy, you bring up a really important point in that, and I think it goes back to, I think what Selma was kind of touching on as well. When I think about mental health disorders, right, substance use disorders, oftentimes we see symptoms, right? We see behavior changes. We see, I think a perfect example, and a lot of this was documented during the pandemic, there was an increase in alcohol use. And I think in part, it's symptom management, right? Sometimes we look to things to feel better, and in some cases it's substances like alcohol or other substances of misuse. And knowing these kinds of or having this kind of information, to Kathy's point, better informs you of, well, I never noticed that so-and-so is drinking 4 glasses of wine, at dinner, when I think they might have only had 1 in the past, or subtle things that you may not necessarily pay attention to, but that can be characteristic of somebody who's trying to deal with symptoms that they're having a hard time with, whether it be related to any of the disorders we spoke about, whether it be PTSD, depression, bipolar, anxiety.
Yeah.
So, that's an important benefit, I think, also of knowing, because it does allow you to be more informed about different things and look at things maybe in a different way.
Yeah, I agree with that, Steve. And
Yeah, I agree with that, Steve.
And even with we're talking about the who, right, and who benefits from this, just some staggering statistics, while we're on the topic. According to NAMI, well, in our field, we call it NAMI, but the National Alliance of Mental Illness, 1 in 5 people struggle with some sort of mental health disorder, right? So let's think about that. That's what, 20%? That's 20% of people. And so when you look at that, it's not so uncommon that we're struggling with this. We really need and have done a lot of work, I think, to destigmatize and to raise awareness on this topic. There's 48 million people struggling with anxiety, 21 million with major depression. That's not a small amount of people. And so it's important that we spread this awareness, and we also arm ourselves with information, and that there are clinicians available. It's a field you need a lot of soft skills that are not really taught to come into this field, but it's necessary to do the work and to do the work well, and it's important.
I think also mentioning that, like, awareness doesn't just mean you open up a textbook or go online and read about the different disorders or conditions. It could be something as simple as fundraising or doing some community outreach. There are events in different, in all states with the organization that, Selma mentioned, National Alliance on Mental Illness, as well as, Mental Health America. You can find these events and these ways in which you can get involved in your community, because you can educate a large group of people at one time. I think that that's also important.
And to that point, and I think it all kind of goes back to this idea of really trying to create opportunities to have open discussion around mental health, and through that process, really helping reduce misconceptions and stigma, and then really allowing people to be encouraged and supported who might need resources and services like that. And I think, like other disorders, substance use and mental health, although there's definitely been progress in a lot of the various campaigns and destigmatizing kinds of public service announcements, it's still not seen as a chronic medical condition like other chronic medical conditions are. So there's still this imbalance between healthcare and these particular disorders being like a diabetes or a heart condition, that it's more acceptable that chronic, that a chronic disorder would require ongoing therapy and treatment. And unfortunately, there's still that disconnect and stigma associated with mental health and substance use disorders.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, I think that, this has been a robust conversation. I think we'd be remiss at this point if we didn't talk about some resources and some things we lean on even as clinicians when looking for information and resources for our clients and for ourselves. We mentioned NAMI before, and their website is a great place, a starting place if you wanted to look into different mental health disorders and also resources. And I'll link that in the show notes below.
But just to add to that point, NAMI, I think, has been really doing regular presentations for our Let's Talk About It series for members.
I think another good organization to look into and consider is the Substance Use and Mental Health Services Administration. On their website, right, you can educate yourself on, the different challenges that people have, whether it's with substance use or mental health illnesses that we've covered so far today, but also you can get referral services there, right? You can put in the state that you live in, whether you're looking for psychiatry, for counseling, and it'll generate a list, and you can look for counselors who are able to support you in this healing journey.
Also, the Department of Health has also mental health resources, nyc.gov. They've got all New York City-based resources. I know our audience is primarily New York City-based. That's why I mentioned that. And there's so many other resources that are coming up. If you prefer like the digital age, right? There's like BetterHelp and Cerebral, all these places that make it really convenient for you to find someone to talk to. It's also a great place to start.
I also just want to say, oftentimes we wait. Right. We wait for the crisis. We wait for the situation that has become so overwhelming. We feel like we can't catch our breath and take care of what needs to be taken care of in our day-to-day lives. And I think the beauty, from my perspective, about the MAP program is you don't have to wait for a crisis. You can call, just to learn about our services, just to figure out how we might be able to support you before you may get to that kind of crisis point where it's feeling very desperate and in some ways powerless in relation to what you might be dealing with. So I just want to encourage individuals listening and recognizing that there are supports available before any kind of crisis or true situation has to happen, but that we are available really to just talk to you, educate you, and provide support to you.
I think it's important to note that, you don't have to be having panic attacks and being, stress ridden to be able to reach out to somebody at MAP or, someone outside of MAP. I think sometimes we just need somebody to talk to who can give us some skills to be able to cope with the everyday challenges that we are having. It doesn't just have to be depression, anxiety, stress. Sometimes you're like, oh, I'm at a crossroads in my career and I need, somebody else's perspective or outlook on, the things in which I can, the things that I can do. Sometimes it's something as easy as conflict with a partner or a friend and just needing ways to, to manage that. I think sometimes when we think about counseling, I think, Steve, you mentioned this earlier, people say like mental health, illness, or counseling, and they're like, I'm not crazy. But that's not just all that it encompasses, right? It just daily life challenges that you may be having. It'd be good to speak to somebody that, that doesn't have any bias or doesn't know you and can offer support.
Yeah, that was a beautiful segue. Thank you, Steve and Kathy. As we talk about a few of the things that MAP has to offer, we talked about MAP being a group of clinicians and admin and managerial staff that is really meant to support UFT in-service members. And so a few of those things that we do are we host virtual support groups throughout the course of the school year on various topics, from anger management to resiliency, and to we even have a new GBT skills group, which is very, very popular. We host wellness workshops, right, where we speak about a variety of topics. We bring in speakers, and they have really, really had an impact on, our members' well-being, and we've received so much great feedback from these sessions. We also have this podcast, right, where we use to spread awareness as well. We offer, like Steve mentioned, just phone assessment and consultations. If you're struggling with something, you don't know where to start, it's a great place to start. We can come on over to MAP and we can help you at least map out a plan. If we're not able to assist you, we can point you in a direction of where help can be for you and your family members. We offer short-term counseling here with MAB, up to 5 sessions. And so that is something that our members, for absolutely free, right? And our members find that very, very helpful, especially for those who might not want to jump right into long-term therapy. It's a good gateway. It's a good beginning step to understanding how that process feels and understanding what they even want out of a therapeutic relationship.
I think it's so great when our members call in and say, how does this work? I don't have any experience, with therapy, but I would like to speak to somebody. I think I would benefit from speaking to someone. I think the first step is usually the hardest, and recognizing that, you need a little extra help. You need some support outside of, the people in your family or your friend group that usually are the ones that help you. I think that's powerful. I think that's great. And this is why we're here, right? We want to offer you that support. We want to offer you that help in all the ways that MAP provides that, right? It could be the podcast. It could be short-term counseling. It could be referral. It could be joining one of our groups, right? I think that like I mentioned, the first step is usually the hardest, and recognizing that you need help is very powerful.
Yes. And I'm going to link our webpage info in the show notes as well. All righty. Thank you, Steve, Kathy. This has been a fruitful conversation, and for taking your time. I know you guys are very busy serving members every day, and I want to personally thank you for all that you do in the mental health world and community, and spreading light and love and joy to others.
Thank you. I could say the same for you, Selma.
That's
you
right.
Are a clinician.
Same to you.
And you're supporting our members daily, and that, that can
keep going.
This is good. This is good for our mental health, right? Validating the work that we do on a regular basis, right?
Yes.
Once again, thank you for joining us for this episode of the Classroom Cafe. If you are a UFT member, the Members Assistance Program can be reached at 212-701-9620 or at mapinfo@uft.org.